You should not, had you not done that, then this whole facade itself would not have done, because a lot of the POK, lot of sovereign territory would have been reclaimed. But anyway, sir, I have to wind up. But clearly the intent here is, let's make money out of India, because that's the only way we can survive. There's no other intent, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not forget that at all. Winding up the right stand on that note, brass tacks with Zaka right now.
Good evening, this is Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. The Indian consulate in San Francisco was attacked last night, the second such attack in the last 3 months. Now, what is worrying here is this. There seems to be a bit of a pattern. A group that is openly calling for the breakup of one of the states of India is allowed to indulge in violence as well sometimes. And it doesn't seem to invite the wrath of the local authorities, whether in UK, Canada, United States, because ultimately perimeter security is that of the local police. But these very same countries, liberal democracies as they are quick to lecture India on democracy and human rights. And there seems to be a double standard here. While on the one hand, you can have secessionist groups, anti-India groups openly advocating for the breakup of the country, and on the other hand, you have these liberal democracies sort of thumbing their nose on what they call, quote-unquote, democratic backslide in India. So tonight on the show, we're asking, is it time for India to pay back in the same coin?
देश जो है, जैसे कनाडा है, अमेरिका है, यूके है, ऑस्ट्रेलिया है, जहां कभी-कभी खालिस्तानी एक्टिविटीज़ होती हैं, हमने उनको रिक्वेस्ट की है कि वो उनको खालिस्तानियों को स्पेस न दें। रैडिकल एक्सट्रीमिस्ट विचारधारा जो है वो ना हमारे लिए अच्छा है, ना उनके लिए है, ना हमारे रिश्तों के लिए।
इंडियन काउंसलेट सैन फ्रांसिस्को में जो आगजनी करने की कोशिश की गई, हम उसकी कड़े शब्दों में निंदा करते हैं। ये जो लोग कर रहे हैं, ये भारत के भी दुश्मन हैं, सिखों के भी दुश्मन हैं, और ये आईएसआई की हालतों में खेलने वाले लोग हैं।
All right, joining us full panel this evening, Terry Milewski is a Canadian journalist joining us from Ontario. Professor Max Abrams is an international security expert from Boston, USA. Dr. Walter C. Ladwig is a senior lecturer in international relations at the King's College in London. Navdeep Suri is former India diplomat, and Sanju Verma, national spokesperson of the BJP. Let me start with you, Terry Milewski, because there's clearly a pattern here. This incident that we saw, which happened in San Francisco last night, is not an incident in isolation. Across North America, there seems to be a bit of a free run, if you will, for these Khalistani elements. Why is that the case, despite the fact that the Indian government has drawn a line in the sand on numerous occasions when it comes to these Khalistani groups? Terry Milewski.
In Canada's case, of course, the answer is vote bank politics. The government, currently the minority Liberal government of Justin Trudeau, depends for its survival on the support of a left-wing minority party, the NDP, which is led by Jagmeet Singh, a Khalistani sympathizer. But that's not the end of the story. All parties in Canada, people pick on the Liberals. They happen to be in power now. I did not notice when the Conservatives in power that they behaved especially differently. And clearly the NDP wouldn't behave differently if they were in power, as opposed to holding the whip hand, supporting the minority government. So that's the obvious reason. But there's more to it still. All three parties, the main parties in English Canada anyway, have adopted this attitude that, well, Sikhs are abused in India. Sikhs are the victims of genocide in India. They've bought, to a large degree, the Khalistani propaganda and exaggerations of what has happened in Indian history. I won't get into every detail now, but I'll just simply make the point that the Canadians aren't alone in this. In the UK, in Australia, we hear the same story, increasingly in the United States. We have to accept that the Khalistanis have been very capable and competent at the art of disinformation and the art of propaganda. These are modern skills which you have to master if you want to get anywhere in the world, and they've done better than the rest.
So let me ask Professor Max Abrams
than the Canadian government. They've done better
in
many ways
so far
than the UK and American.
All right, Mr. Miliuski. Let me ask Mr. Abrams this, Professor. So, India has, of course, now today issued a démarche to the Canadian High Commissioner. I'm given to understand the Foreign Minister has spoken quite harshly about the events that are going on in Canada and the rest of North America. It comes back to that question. Perimeter security of any facility, including this consulate in San Francisco that was set on fire, at least a portion of it was set on fire, the perimeter security of it is manned by local police. How are they giving up on their responsibility so easily?
Well, protecting consulates is always an important priority when it comes to counterterrorism. Consulates are, especially American consulates, have been a very common target around the world. I do agree with you in the sense that this San Francisco venue has been struck now 2 times over 3 months. And so that is problematic, alarming, unacceptable. On the other hand, it is true that in neither case was it breached. These were attacks that, happened on the perimeter. We're talking about essentially a thwarted arson attack, banging on windows, graffiti, waving flags. So obviously we've seen worse.
No, but once again, banging on windows, shouting slogans, taking out posters, saying target these diplomats because they have worked against the Khalistan interests. Are these all not issues serious enough for the people of India, the government of India to take seriously?
Absolutely. They should be taken very seriously, and I think that they are being taken seriously. My understanding is that after the March attack, there were some measures put in place to further harden the consulate in terms of putting in railings. The consulate needs to continue to be hardened, but also there needs to be more intelligence sharing, I think, between India and these local governments, these national governments, whether it's the US or Canada or the UK or Australia.
Okay. So that's a fair point. Let me ask Dr. Walter Ladwig. Let's say the shoe was on the other foot. A bunch of people were protesting outside, the US embassy, calling the leaders there by names, etc. Would that be acceptable in the name of freedom of expression?
I think the answer would have to be yes. I mean, we may not like the message, but as long as they're behaving lawfully, as long as they're complying with the rules and regulations of whichever country it's taking place in, the difference is when that progresses to actual damage, violence against either property or the lives of diplomats.
Okay. So let me ask Navdeep Suri, who's somebody who's been a career diplomat, has been in the foreign services for the last 30 plus years. If you have the posters of the Indian envoys in Washington as well as in other parts of Europe and say that these guys are the ones responsible for the killing of our leaders, I mean, how are we even going to, make sense of this? I mean, how does a diplomat even begin to deal with this problem?
Well, I'm sorry, I think I'm losing your audio a little bit, but let me just say that I think in this particular incident, the Khalistani groups have really crossed a red line.
Yep.
They have, physically attacked, attempted arson against a diplomatic premises, and they are issuing posters that are called to incitement to violence against Indian diplomats. And on both accounts, I think the federal agencies should go after them with a very hard posture.
So, Sanju Verma, how do you then square off? Just 10 days ago, we had this hugely successful visit by the Prime Minister to the United States. And now 10 days later, there is this attack on the consulate for the second time in the last 3 months. You know, the opposition is saying this is proof that the visit didn't really achieve much. And India's place continues to be where it was, because otherwise, why are we not able to stop all these attacks?
You know, Zaka, first and foremost, let's be very clear. What I liked about your introduction was that you said there is a clear pattern. And, you know, I couldn't agree more. You know, be it the vandalization of the Indian High Commission in UK in March this year, or a couple of weeks back, the Khalistani referendum event that was organized in the city of Victoria in Australia, or the manner in which Hindu temples in Melbourne have been vandalized, a Lakshminarayan temple at Brisbane vandalized. You know, there's clearly a message. It's a twofold thing. A, Khalistani radicals are at work, and how? And B, I would dare say that the manner in which the Khalistani operatives have been targeting Hindu places of worship, it stinks of Hindu phobia too. And I'll just say that I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that on the 18th of June, barely a couple of weeks back, on the 18th of June this year, you know, unidentified gunmen actually killed Khalistani Tiger Force Chief Hardeep Singh Nijjar in the town of Surrey. And I'm told that Khalistani radicals actually blame the Indian dispensation. Now, we are not soft peddling on the Khalistani issue, because if you look at the MEA, Mr. Jaishankar's statement, he has clearly said that radical extremist Khalistani ideology is neither good for India nor for its partners like the US, Canada, UK, Australia, what have you.
Okay.
Point number two, you know, demarche orders were issued in June this year. The Canadian High Commissioner Cameron McKay was summoned. And also, if you look at the statement by the US State Department spokesperson, I think that tells you a lot about the fact that the US visit of the Prime Minister was not something which you know, soft pedaled on issues like terrorism, on which we have always taken a very strong stand internationally. You know, I think your audience needs to know that Matthew Miller, the spokesperson for the US State Department, has tweeted the US strongly condemns the reported vandalism and attempted arson against Indian consulate in San Francisco on Saturday. Vandalism or violence against diplomatic facilities in the US is a criminal offense. But more importantly, you know, Azaka, I think what needs to be told is that the Modi government has been striking at the heart of the Khalistani radicals. If you recall, in December 2021, we arrested, after liaisoning with the German government, dreaded Khalistani terrorist Jaswinder Singh Multani. In 2022, the NIA cracked down on Babbar Khalsa High Commander Kulvinderjeet Singh Khanpuria. And I think the fact that on the one hand, we are striking and coming down heavily on Khalistani rebels, but at the same time, we are very clear that we stand in support with our bona fide Sikh brothers and sisters. I think that was amply demonstrated when the Prime Minister decided to ensure that December 26th every year is celebrated as Veer Bal Divas in the honor of the Chote Sahibzades who were butchered centuries back. The limited point I'm making is that while the Indian government is trying to rehabilitate people who genuinely want to come back into the mainstream, there is also a conscious attempt to ensure that Khalistani terrorists and radicals, their bluff is called out for who they are and for the terror that they epitomize and
so Terry Miliuski, you know, you said the problem is cultural, or you said that the problem is that the way protests are viewed in the West is very different from the way protests are viewed here in India. Be that as it may, you know, let's park that thought aside for a second. Will, you know, the United States or Canada or UK or any country brook tomorrow, if let's say a bunch of folks from Quebec are to protest outside the Canadian High Commission here in Delhi, saying that we want independence for Quebec, how is that going to work out? Will Mr. Trudeau accept that? Would that not, invite international sort of scrutiny and condemnation?
Well, I believe you're asking exactly the right question, because the question that arises right now is, how much is too much? Where is the line? Where do we cross the line? And the Khalistanis have, over the last decades, been very skilled at gradually tiptoeing up the line, putting a foot over it. Did we get away with it? Is society going to stand for this? We're putting up posters on the Vaisakhi parades of gun-toting assassins and martyrs and mass murderers, like the Air India bomber in Canada's case, Canada's worst ever mass murderer. Oh, well, we got away with that. They didn't say anything. Okay, now we're going to put up a life-size poster of him, garlanded with gold tinsel, right on the outside wall of the Gurdwara in Surrey, British Columbia. Now we look around. Are we going to get away with that? Wow, we did. Then what? Now we're going to do a diorama, a reenactment, very recently in Toronto, of the assassination of Indira Gandhi. And we're going to make sure to put lots of ketchup on her sari, so it looks like lots of blood. We're going to give the kids a great lesson. This is a thing to be celebrated. This was a great thing to have happen, this assassination of Indira Gandhi. Now look at what's going on now. These posters that are going out advertising the rally at the Indian consulate in Toronto and elsewhere around the Western world on this coming Saturday, I guess. These posters amount to death threats and hate speech. You're painting a target on the backs of Indian diplomats, and you're calling them killers, and there's in the middle of the poster the big letters, kill. These are killer posters. And they're looking around to see, now, are we going to get away with that? Is that where the line is crossed? So far, we have had a statement from the Canadian government, others elsewhere, unacceptable. Yeah, well, you can say it's unacceptable. Are you now going to accept it? That's the question. Where is the line going to be crossed, and where do we recognize that it's crossed?
So
what was ever a time to say, okay,
no,
now
I'm very one second. I'm very clear.
This is it.
I'm very clear about where the line is crossed. I don't think, even if it's a peaceful protest, calling up for the splitting of the sovereignty of a nation, whether it's India or France or UK or whatever the country is, calling for the separation of one state or one province in a sovereign country, that is a line that's crossed. Professor Max Abrams, then it doesn't matter if it is peaceful or not. Yes, even in the United States, they are very particular about the First Amendment and people have the right to protest. But this is not just a protest. This is borderline incitement. That's what it is.
This is a very interesting segment, honestly. I think that the United States makes a strong distinction between the expression of one's political preferences and the use of criminal tactics, especially violent ones. The statement that you made, actually, I don't think represents the American view. In the United States, because of the First Amendment, one's political preferences are in fact protected. So calling for independence, secessionist groups within India would be constitutionally protected. And frankly, I think that it should be. That's an entirely different issue than whether one finds acceptable an attack against a consulate. That is a crime in the United States, and it should be prosecuted to the fullest.
Let me also bring in Navdeep Suri on this. Clearly, like I've been saying, perimeter security is the job of the local police there. India has been putting pressure through diplomatic channels. You heard from the External Affairs Minister. He's speaking virtually every day now about this Khalistan problem. But how does India ensure that the weight of those words translate into action? Because ultimately, the local authorities, whether in Canada, US or UK, have to crack down and be seen as cracking down against these elements.
I think this time you will be different. This time you will see some change in the action on the ground, simply because, as I said earlier, a red line has been crossed. The nature of the violence is different. The nature of the act is different from what it was in the past. And I think the federal authorities should go after them and really that will be a lesson, as Terry was saying, that it's always testing the waters. Where's the line? How far can we go? And now perhaps there will be a recognition that we've gone too far. And I think that given our close relations with the United States, given the successful visit of the Prime Minister, given our very, very active ambassador in Washington, who happens to be a Sikh from Amritsar, there are lots of reasons why the Americans, I think, will take a much stronger action this time than they have in the past.
Well, we hope that that indeed does come true, but the world doesn't live on hope alone, does it? So let me ask Sanju Verma this. You have a very important SCO meeting that has just concluded. You're going to have the G20 in early September. In the run-up to that, this whole Khalistan rally that these guys have organized on the 8th, I believe, in Toronto. Is this going to cast a shadow as India rises? And there's no doubt about it, India's stature is rising with every passing day, with every passing visit of the Prime Minister. Is this going to be something that is going to hold back India's rise?
You know, Zaka, I think it would be very puerile to say that this is going to hold back India's rise, because I think Prime Minister Modi takes no prisoners and does not hold back his punches. While Prime Minister Modi was the first one in October 2014, in his first term, to constitute a SIT, thanks to which Sajjan Kumar was sent to prison. And let me remind those who don't know who Sajjan Kumar is. He was the chief perpetrator of the anti-Sikh genocide way back under the Congress dispensation in 1984. That was a strong message from the Narendra Modi government that it means business when it comes to healing the wounds of the Sikh community. Equally, let it be known to people that we don't take a soft stance on terror. And I think, Zaka, the best example of that is the fact that the Indian government came down hard on Amritpal Singh, the so-called founder of Waris Punjab Day, and his assistant Lavpreet Singh Tufani, who were captured in April this year and sent behind bars. People said, oh, the Modi government will ensure that Amritpal Singh flies back to Dubai because it does not want to escalate the issue. But no, that was indeed not something that happened. And I think people also need to know that two hardened Khalistani radicals, be it Paramjeet Singh Panjwar, who was shot dead in Pakistan thanks to inputs from the NIA, or Avtar Singh Khanda, who was shot dead in the United Kingdom, again with the Indian government liaising with the Indian High Commission in UK. The message that the Modi government is sending is that we are working very closely and collaborating with our partner countries to ensure that radicalism, Hindu phobia, hate speech is dealt with a firm hand without taking any prisoners on that count.
Okay, so Professor Ladwig, just paint the story forward for us. Take the story forward for us. Yes, India has issued a démarche. The Canadian High Commissioner has been summoned. He was told off by senior MA officials about this attack and this planned 8th July rally. I believe it's going to be a massive rally on the outskirts of Toronto. Just in terms of, will India be able to impress upon, many of these countries are friendly countries, many of them are partner countries. Will they be able to convince these countries that, look, what is being demanded through these protests, and by letting them happen, you're legitimizing them to some extent, is actually the division of India, the breakup of India, and that is not something that is acceptable to us?
So I think what we first need to focus on is, what are these Khalistani folks trying to achieve through their various attacks in San Francisco, in London, and in other places? And it is division. It's not just a division of India. It's also attempting to divide India, as you point out, from its friends. The Prime Minister just had a very successful and high-profile visit to the U.S. that was supposed to be culminating U.S.-India partnership. And yet, the lead-in for this segment is as to whether or not India should sort of repay the United States in kind. Okay. I think one of the things we have to be careful of is they want us to fall amongst ourselves, and they want us to be pointing fingers at each other and to be divided. The State Department spokesman's statement was already noted. The U.S. has condemned this. This is seen, particularly this attempted arson, as a clear criminal attack.
Yeah.
I think, as Professor Abrams has pointed out, there is a very fine line between calling for a political development within India, being protected within the United States and its political and legal formulation, but issuing threats against specific individuals is illegal. That is not protected speech. That is not something you can do under the First Amendment. And
there are pictures. I mean, there are posters that are doing the rounds, and we've shown this on TV as well, of Taranjit Singh Sandhu, who is the Indian ambassador to the US, as well as other Indian diplomats. You know, it's bizarre. Those posters actually say that they are the ones who are responsible for the killing of a dreaded terrorist like Nijar. Now, let's be very, very clear about this tonight, folks, as I wrap up this debate one here on Brass Tacks, that there are certain things where India needs to draw a line in the sand. Right now, it is doing that this far and no further. That message is going across. But the next step would be the ability to enforce that has been followed through, that other countries are listening and standing by that line that's been drawn in the sand. The distance that we need to traverse, that is going to be the challenge over the next few years. But we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much to all our guests. I want to quickly move on to our second debate tonight, and that, of course, is on the the entire debate surrounding the Uniform Civil Code. The Parliamentary Standing Committee for Law and Justice held a meeting yesterday on the Uniform Civil Code. According to top sources, opposition parties have questioned the government's intent, with many tribal states raising some concerns. Opposition MPs allege that the government is making the pitch keeping elections in mind. Close to 20 lakh suggestions have been received by the Law Commission.
चूँकि यूसीसी कमेटी का ड्राफ्ट कंप्लीट रूप से हमें नहीं मिला है और उनका ड्राफ्ट जब मिलेगा तो उस पर तभी कुछ कह पाना संभव होगा। हम बहुत देर भी नहीं करेंगे और जल्दबाजी में जो है ऐसा काम भी नहीं होगा कि जो है कि कोई ऊपर का नीचे हो जाए, इसलिए बहुत सोच समझकर उस पर काम होगा।
The state shall endeavor to secure for citizens a uniform civil code throughout the territory of India. Any further delay in implementation of uniform civil code will be corrosive of our values.
I think it's pretty simple. We have the Special Marriage Act. We have the Indian Succession Act. This is the law of marriage and divorce. It will apply to all Indians, irrespective of caste, creed, or color.
I am a strong believer in the Uniform Civil Code. I think it's a historical necessity. I think a nation needs one law.
All right, one nation, one law when it comes to personal laws. Right now, its base is religion. The Muslims have Sharia law. The Christians have their own succession and inheritance acts. And of course, so do the Hindus. So should that be changed for having one set of personal laws or civil laws, just like we have one set of criminal laws, both in the Indian Penal Code and in the Criminal Procedure Code? Let me now bring in our guests who are joining us. Varis Pathan is spokesperson of the AIMIM party. Vishnu Jain is advocate at the Supreme Court. Varis Pathan, the fundamental argument that's being made by backers of the UCC is that not having a common civil law means you're discriminating between different communities and perhaps even within different communities. And India, as a thriving democratic nation, should not have laws that are unequal among communities.
Well, Zaka, there is no need for getting the UCC. As in 2018 itself, the Law Commission has clearly stated that the country does not require a uniform civil code and that there should be no argument for the coming next 10 years. But Modi, when he went to the US, he was asked several questions by the journalist. Barack Obama came before the nation on a television interview. He spoke about the minority trouble in India, the ethnic minority facing such kind of trouble. So Modi came to India and he started with triple talaq issue, Pasmanda Muslim issue and UCC. This was their also agenda prior to the 2019 election. But let me tell you, Zaka, and ask the BJP spokesperson, what will they do with the HUF, the Hindu undivided family, which is getting the rebate, and that is amounting to more than 3,000 crore per year? What will happen to the Article 26, 29, 14, 15? Article 29 is the unfettered right which is guaranteed to every Indian as per the constitution given to us by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, which speaks about pluralism and diversity of the country, which are the basic structures of the constitution. What will happen to that? They are speaking about Article 44. Article 44 says the state shall endeavor. The word uses shall endeavor, koshish kariye. But it is not that you have to make it mandatory. This last 70 years we have been following the constitution.
No, fair enough. You still have not given me an argument as to why there should not be one civil law when we can have one criminal law. But Vishnu Jain, please respond.
Because we have different culture.
Fair enough. So I'm getting to that question with Vishnu Jain. Yesterday at the parliamentary panel meeting, there was the chair who asked, how can we extend this to tribal communities in the northeast, for example? So already first exemption is being asked for within what is being called a uniform civil code. So Vishnu Jain, will it work at all? Because now we are saying that all tribals will be kept out of the purview of the UCC.
See, as a lawyer practicing in the Supreme Court, my duty is to answer the question which you have asked, and the legal answer to your question is that except Article 371A, where the provision is for state of Nagaland that if any law interferes with their custom or usage, the State Assembly of Nagaland has to pass it. Apart from that, so far as other aspects are concerned, other states are concerned, they are governed by the provisions of 6th schedule. And let me quote and tell you chapter 12A of 6th schedule, where the provision is that if a parliament makes a law against their custom and usage, the law made by the parliament will prevail. Varis Bhai is here. He's a well-known lawyer, so he can counter me on this point. That is point number one. The second point, Zaka, which I want to highlight today on your show is, it's a question of gender justice. Under Article 15, subclause 3, Parliament has the power to make special laws so far as women and children are concerned. Let me ask a very fundamental question. Whether female genital mutilation, whether it is valid or not, whether we should not debate upon it. Female genital mutilation is drawing the attention of the Supreme Court 7 judges bench. The UNICEF has said, the United Nations has said that this is the most heinous practice. And if someone is taking shelter of their own religion, should we not talk about it? It is against the dignity of a woman. Then apart from this, there is halala, there is iddat. All these things, whether we should not come within the purview of UCC, then there is a provision of child marriage, child prohibition. Act is already there, but it does not apply to the members of the Muslim community.
So Varis, respond to this. Essentially, by having different set of laws and Sharia law and other laws, you are discriminating mostly against women in the Muslim community. They are at the receiving end of whether it is polygamy, whether it is even skewed succession and inheritance. Within families, the women are never favored. So how do you respond to that criticism that you are not being gender friendly?
Well, no. Well, my learned friend just now spoke about the Uniform Civil Code. Why should it be implemented? I'll ask him whether it will go as per the Dayabaka school of thoughts or Mitaksha school of thoughts. What will happen to that? What will happen to the special status that is given to the tribals? As you already said that the tribals, the Uniform Civil Code will not be applicable. And where is the draft of the Uniform Civil Code? I mean, it was so important. Modi was in power since the last 9 years. The BJP is there. What prevented them for getting the Uniform Civil Code? Why prior to the election? What about polygamy? I would request my learned friend to give me names of 10 Muslims, not more. 10 Muslims, just name them who have married 4 times. There are nobody. And I will give you certain people's names who are non-Muslim, but they are having 5, 6. I would not name them. But let me tell you, this is the reality of the country. So where will we go? So this is nothing but you want to implement the Hindu civil code, sir, nothing more than that. What benefit you will have?
No, one second.
I was listening to you carefully.
I got it. Just one limited point on what you said, show me 10 people who have multiple wives or multiple spouses. But point is, I don't think law works on anecdotes. Correct. Law works on principle. The fact that you have a law which enables a person to have multiple spouses, that the principle of it is wrong. That is what the limited point is. Anyway, continue.
Well, in that case, Zaka, in Zaka, if that the principle is applied, then you must have a uniform law on the hate speeches. When during this Mahasabha, Hindu Mahasabha, they give hate speech against the Muslims
There is
for
already a provision
killing them, genocide, no action against them. No action against them. But if a Muslim, somebody says something, you put under NIA, send him to jail. Then let there be a law for that. Equality in law. Why are you not getting that? What prevents you from making a law on the mob lynching? When Muslims are being mob lynched in the name of cow, Muslims are being mob lynched in not speaking JSR, get a law on that. Let there be equality in law. But I would say, when is Modi getting this law? What will happen to our Sikh brothers in Punjab? Ask them whether they are interested in that. In Gujarat, Zaka, there is a law. If Waris Pradhan wants to go and buy a flat or a property in a Hindu area, I cannot buy. What will happen to that? If in Himachal Pradesh, I want to buy a 1 acre orchard land, agriculture, or I am not allowed or I am not entitled to buy that because the law of the land is simple. In India, there are several states in which cow is a mummy, there are states cow is a yummy. What will they do for that? So it is just not possible in a country, diversified country like us, to have one common law for every person. And what is the draft? We don't know what is the draft, whether they will be going for the languages as well. Then every Indian must speak Hindi only. What will happen in Gujarat? What will happen in Tamil Nadu? What will happen in Maharashtra? We don't know. So what is the draft? Nobody knows. But only they want to implement a law just to harass one particular community by maligning their image, saying that char shadi karte, so there should be law on that. Gender equality nahi hai because women are being troubled. We got triple talaq. After triple talaq, ask the women on the ground what is the real issue.
No, but
I would like
Mr.
Modi to come up with a
show
us what are the intention, what does he mean by uniform civil code?
No, 1 second. By saying that, it's targeting one community or only looking at one community, again, I don't necessarily agree with that. For example, Christian women, in the case of divorce for Christian women, in all cases, they have to wait 1 year, which is called the reconciliation period. Courts give one. Period. Yeah, for Christian women, it's 2 years. Don't you think that is gender unfair? Right. Why should Christian women have to wait for 2 years if they are in a marriage that has irretrievably broken down? Anyway, be that as it may, but Vishnu Jain, I want to come back to you have still not.
What will happen to that?
1 second, Vishnu Jain. Fundamental question is whether it is 371A in the case of northeastern states or whether it is protections granted to scheduled tribes. If you are going to make exceptions, then it is not a uniform civil code. No, then you have to say uniform civil code asterisk.
Yes.
The asterisk is these are the guys who are exempted.
Zaka, see, my point and summation before you is this, that when we are debating upon uniform civil code, we have to agree on certain grand norms. And the grand norm is that so far as dignity of women is concerned, that is the foremost duty of the framers and the protectors of the constitution, as well as all the parliamentarians. So now let me suggest something. When uniform civil code will come, polygamy will be banned. When uniform civil code will come, bigamy will be banned. When uniform civil code will come, female genital mutilation will be banned. Whether it is across, I'm talking about across all the communities. When uniform civil code will come, there will be equal rights so far as succession is concerned. There will be uniform rights so far as inheritance is concerned. There will be no child marriage. There will be widow remarriage. All these will be under the purview of uniform civil code. There will be uniform grounds of divorce. Now let me tell you, Zaka, so far as the members of Hindu community are concerned, there was Sati Pratha in our community. It was abolished. Sati Abolition Act 1987. Waris Bhai can counter me on this. Prohibition of Child Marriage Act 2006 has been enacted by the parliament so far as vision of UNICEF was concerned. Hindu Widow Remarriage Act 1856 as well as by the recent parliament has been enacted. Section 6 of the Hindu Succession Act gave equal rights to the daughter of our community. So I am asking whether if we bring this... Whether we bring this so far as across the members of all the community, where is the religion of Waris Bhai getting impacted? And I'm asking
Waris Pathan, I think on those 2 points, one, there has been a series of reformative laws in Hinduism, whether it is abolishing sati, whether it is abolishing child marriage, and of course the division, inheritance and succession. But why are you not having the same for Muslims and particularly for Muslim women? Today, for example, I think there is this. I'm not sure what the name is, but the inheritance law for women in the Muslim community is 1/8 or something of that sort, or 1/8
and 1/6.
Yeah, 1/8 and
1/6, and after marriage 1/8.
Yeah, how? I mean, isn't that unfair, Waris Bhai? Isn't that something that should be done away with?
Well, I am very happy to learn that my learned friend and the BJP Modi have got soft corner for the women. They are very much worried about the Muslim women, and during Triple Talaq also Modi said Muslim sisters are my women are my sisters. But I may ask you, Bilkis Banu is also Muslim. What did he do for her? Her parent rapists are moving outside freeland. Zakia Jafri was a Muslim. Our Muslim daughters wanted to study wearing a hijab. He did not allow 700 students did not appear for that. And let me remind you, I am also worried about my Hindu sisters. My Hindu sisters, more than 20 lakh of them are abandoned. They are in Vrindavan. What will happen to them? Why nobody talks about them? Why nobody cares about them? And for law, if a person outrages the modesty of a woman or passes some comment, the law is applicable to Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai, whosoever is there. In Mizoram, they have alliance with the Naga PPF party. What will they do with that? 2003, since 2003, BJP is alliance with them. Will they break it? When are they going to break it? They said, no, we are protected by the tribal law. We will not go along with the UCC. So what will happen to that? And does Mr. my learned friend know what is in the draft? Modi does not know what is UCC. He just says he is going to implement UCC. But he is a senior advocate of the Supreme Court. Kindly show me what is written in the draft and let us debate on that. Kindly come up with the draft.
One second, one at a time.
Whether HUF will be removed, whether the law prevailing in Himachal and Gujarat will be done off with, whether Daya Bhaga School of Thought and Mitaksha School of Thought will be
draft
implemented.
will be circulated in Parliament. Every parliamentarian will get a chance to peruse that draft. It will go through a debate in Parliament, and it has to be passed as a law in Parliament. It's going to be a process. It's not like आज मैंने बोल दिया कल हो जाएगा UCC.
Zaka, only 2 sessions are remaining of the parliament.
Yes.
For 9 long years, what were Modi doing? What was the BJP doing when they were in power? And now, all of a sudden, why do they come along with the UCC? And I am asking simple question.
Okay.
Will they go along with the HUF or will it be removed? What about the tribals? What will happen to them?
Okay, so that's a political point. So Vishnu, answer the political point. For nine and a half years, this government did not say anything about UCC. 6 months to elections, and suddenly UCC is all the talk of town. Varis Pathan and his party and other opposition parties are saying this is only to polarize the electorate before the general elections.
Polarize the situation.
First of all, Zaka, let me answer the question of draft. So far as draft is concerned, the Law Commission has asked for suggestions. When the suggestions will be given to the Law Commission, then the draft will be made. If today at the draft stage suggestions are not asked for, they will say that we were not included in this legislative process. So this legislative process, everyone from the country has been included. That's the first point. Now the second point is this: Varis Bhai has raised an issue that what will happen to HUF. I am asking, there is hiba under Muslim law. There is oral gift. There is no stamp duty on hiba. And so much of stamp duty has been eradicated. So far as hiba is concerned, we are not talking about hiba or HUF, Varis Bhai. We are talking about very, very crucial fundamental issue.
Are you getting the law only to? That's why I said, Zakasi. He himself said they want to just move on with the Muslim laws. They want to just see to it that the Muslims are targeted. That is what the polarization is mean. That what the polarization means.
The words are used in Article 44 itself, and it's a very, very clear distinction.
Okay.
Article 31C, please have a look at Article 31C.
You make a statement that you will remove the HUF.
If any law is brought to implement the provisions of directive principles of state policy, it will not challenge.
I am completely out of time. I've got to wrap up. Thank you very much to Varis Pathan and to Vishnu Jain. I'm completely out of time. Sorry about that. But it's very clear. I think this is going to be a very, very consistent and pertinent theme in the run-up to the 2024 elections. Clearly, both the government and the opposition having very strong views about it, and we'll be on top of those debates as well. We'll finally wrap up with news coming in from Bengal just ahead of the Panchayat elections that are slated later this week. Fresh violence has been reported in the state. A TMC worker was shot dead in South 24 Parganas. The TMC has blamed the BJP, while the Saffron Party has denied the allegations. The TMC has also written a letter against the governor to the State Election Commission. Now, in the letter, the TMC has claimed that the governor is behaving like a political agent and hampering the election process amid tensions in Bhangar. The TMC has claimed that members of the ISF have vandalized the homes of their party workers. The Panchayat elections kick off on the 8th, which is later this week, and they will serve as a crucial litmus test in the ongoing face-off between the TMC and the BJP. Meanwhile, we have a couple of ground reports from Bengal, from battleground Bengal, in which way the local body elections could likely swing.
These are called safe houses because they're considered to be safe for many of the candidates who are contesting for the panchayat elections from West Bengal. And I'm speaking to two of them who have now say they have been threatened by what they call the TMC goons. सबसे पहले क्यों चुनाव लड़ोगे थ्रेट हुआ तो?
हम लोग तो आज तो नहीं 2014 से हम लोग संगठन कर रहा है। वहाँ पे संगठन उस टाइम में अच्छा नहीं था, लेकिन अभी थोड़ा परिवर्तन हुआ, अच्छा हुआ। हम लोग ये चुनाव लड़ने के लिए फैसला किया है। वहाँ पे बहुत टीएमसी जो है ना, हम लोग एग्नेस्ट में जो टीएमसी संगठन है वहाँ पे 2021 में बहुत तोड़फोड़ किया है।
इसलिए आप लोग यहाँ पे आ गए हो क्योंकि आप लोगों को भी थ्रेटन किया गया था, हालांकि आप लड़ नहीं रहे हो।
हम खुद नहीं लड़ा है। मेरा गांव का 2 कैंडिडेट है, 3 पॉइंट कैंडिडेट एक गांव का था। 14 तारीख हम लोग को घर में 300-400 के आदमी बम।
वो क्या टीएमसी के थे वो?
हाँ, सब
टीएमसी तो मना कर रही है कि हम जाते नहीं हैं।
नहीं, खुद हमको भगाया, मेरे घर में तोड़ने के लिए ऐसे धमकी भी दिया। मेरे को धमकी दिया, मेरे जाने घर जाएंगे तो शूट कर देंगे, बहुत सारी धमकी दिया।
टीएमसी का कहना है कि ये झूठ है, वहाँ पे कोई वायलेंस नहीं होता, लेकिन मैं यहाँ सेफ हाउस में देखती हूँ कि बहुत लोग आके ठहरे हुए हैं।
ये तो अभी सब लोग चला गया, यहाँ पर प्राय 40 आदमी था। अभी बहुत आदमी हमको जो महिला पार्टी है उसको हम अलग अलग घर में भेज दिया। यहाँ पर ऑफिस है ना, तो अभी जो सूचना है पश्चिम बंगाल का आपको सब मालूम है, आपको दूरदर्शन व आपको जो चैनल का माध्यम है। यहाँ पर जो हमारा डेमोक्रेसी जो है ना, डेमोक्रेसी नहीं है, यह टीएमसी पार्टी भी नहीं है। यह भी चल रहा है एबी कंपनी का रोल चल रहा है। अभिषेक बनर्जी यहाँ पर जो पंचायत है, यह राजनीतिक का दूसरा फायदा, यहाँ के पैसा का राजनीति होता है। पर पंचायत के लिए आप मालूम है जो 5 करोड़ रुपया आता है। ये जो परसेंटेज ज़्यादा परसेंटेज एबीपी कंपनी में ज़्यादा है।
নিজের ভোট নিজে দাও রে, একটাও যেন প্রাণ যায় না রে, অঙ্গীকার করতে হবে সবারে, শান্তিপূর্ণ ভোট যেন হয় রে।
आपको किसी ने बोला ये करने को क्या?
नहीं, मैं स्टेट एंड सेंट्रल का इलेक्शन कमीशनर सम्मानित शिल्पी, राष्ट्रपति का सम्मानित शिल्पी, मैं दायित्व कांधे तुल लेके आया। एट फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट मैं जिला जिला घूमाता है, मानुष के जागरूक करता है। ये आपका खुद वोट खुद दीजिए, सकाल वोट दीजिए, ज़्यादा रुकना नहीं पड़ेगा। अबाध पक्षपातहीन वोट होगा, कोई भेदाभेद नहीं करेगा।
So there is a mysticism which is surrounds the whole Baul song, which is a part of Bengali music and folklore. And you know, the whole tradition really has been that you sing Baul Gan and go village to village. That's what has been done traditionally, where you come across with a deep message. And people like Swapan Datto are also trying to send out this deep message that music, and through music essentially, that there is a way in which you can bring peace as far as even the panchayat elections are concerned. He certainly hopes that this is a message which will go across, people can vote there fearlessly, and also what election should be all about.
Nandigram, which is a name, a very important name in political history of Bengal. This is the place which witnessed, and this is the place which is the reason for downfall of left. And this is the place where in election history it will be remembered that in 2021, when the Trinamool came with a thumping majority, here Chief Minister Mamta Banerjee lost to Shubhendu Adhikari. After 2021, this is the first election, this is the first panchayat election. Which way the wind is blowing? Is it Shubhendu Adhikari or is it Mamta Banerjee?
There are 17 Gram Panchayats, 2 Panchayat Samitis and 5 Zilla Parishads in Nandigram. All were won by the TMC in the 2018 elections. The then sitting MLA was from TMC. Now he is the BJP's star campaigner and the leader of opposition in the state. TMC is trying to project clean candidates, which is why the party has decided to dump one of their most prominent leaders, Sheikh Sufyan, who was once Mamta Banerjee's election agent.
This is the house of Sheikh Sufyan, one of the most prominent leaders of Nandigram, though he is one of the oldest leader, but he has not got the ticket since party is trying to cleanse its image, to clean his image.
अभी कुछ दुख है तो मेरे दल का ऊपर दुख नहीं है। मैं बिजनेस करके पैसा कमाता है, उनके लिए गाड़ी बाड़ी यहाँ पर खप कर रहा है। तो मैं बिजनेस करने से, पैसा रोजगार करने से कुछ बाड़ी होता है कि गाड़ी होता है। जे जवाब देगा, तृणमूल कांग्रेस को ज़्यादा वोट से जिताएगा, ये तो लड़ाई होगा।
But corruption is not the biggest plank this local poll. Unfortunately, it's the bloodshed. CNN News 18 travelled to Chillagram, to Debrata Maiti's residence. Maiti was a BJP worker who was allegedly killed by ruling party workers after poll results in May 2021. Now CBI is investigating this case, but for his family and those who knew him, fear and panic grips them as another election nears.
Right now, we are standing in Nandigram's Debobroto Maiti's residence. Debobroto Maiti is that person who got killed after 2021 results were declared. And according to the court order, there should be protection in their house. This is the protection, this is the police post which is there. As far as the people in the locality and the house people are saying that police does not stay always. 2 साल हो गया, पंचायत चुनाव आएगा, तो किस चीज को देख के चुनाव में वोट देने जाओगे? और तुम लोग कैसे हो?
अभी हम लोग चुनाव में जाने के लिए जो घटना घटी थी, जो पापा को जिस तरीके से मारा गया था, उस सब चीज़ को ध्यान में रखते हुए हम लोग ऑब्वियसली वोट देने जाएंगे। और मैं ये भी चाहता हूँ कि शांतिपूर्ण भाव में वोट होना चाहिए।
शांतिपूर्ण भाव में होगा?
डेफिनेटली होगा, क्यों ना, जब तक हमारा लीडर है, शुभेंदु अधिकारी जी है, तब तक ऑब्वियसली होगा। ये हमारा मतलब उनके ऊपर एक भरोसा है।
For both the TMC and BJP, Nandigram is no less than Kurukshetra. The mood on the ground reflects what is at stake.
Right now, I am in a block office of TMC, and as you can see that there is a total, the temperature is high outside and the temperature high is inside also, because it's run up to elections and everybody is busy.
Development का खेला होगा। नंदीग्राम में all round development किया है ममता बनर्जी।
It's a 50-50 fight for now. CNN News 18 travelled to the very spot where Mamta Banerjee had suffered injuries to her left foot during assembly election campaigning back in 2021. Is the sympathy wave carrying on for Mamta Banerjee?
This is the place where Mamta Banerjee was injured in 2021. Trinamool Congress, will they take a revenge through people's vote and get all the 5 Zilla Parishads here? Or will Shubhendu Adhikari's reign will stay here? Shubhendu Adhikari's numbers will be good here. That is to be seen. And that's the big story from Nandigram. This is Komalika Sengupta with Anshuman Rai reporting from Nandigram for CNN News 18.
Regardless of charges thrown at the Modi government, at the centre, there's been no scan. And it's a complete contrast to the UPA time. Don't you think if this becomes the 2024 plank, that is trouble for TMC?
Article 29 is intended to protect the interests of minority groups. It provides any section of the citizens residing in India having distinct culture, language or script the right to conserve their culture, language and script.
America is willing to make the same investment in India over the next 10, 20, 30 years, like it did with China. And as President Biden said, America's future is intertwined with India's future, certainly economically speaking.
Concerning is the least what we can say. It's unprecedented that Indian High Commission, Indian consulate, or its officials are being openly threatened. The posters and posts are floating on social media, especially on TikTok, for calling decisive action. And this decisive action is not for protest. This is not for making a human chain or something. This decisive action, they are calling for physically harming Indian officials here in Australia. And as yet, we haven't heard anything from Australian authorities, be it Department of Foreign Affairs, which is responsible for well-being of diplomats here in Australia. We haven't heard from Australian Federal Police or local Victorian or ACT Police. They are yet to respond to our queries about these threats to these officials. One social media post, which was one of the most concerning, in fact, it was brought to our notice by the Australian security agencies, that it was asking to do the same what has happened in San Francisco. So he probably was not across what has happened there in US. Then we had exchange of that video which shows how it has been firebombed. And after that, probably when they understood the severity of this incident, probably there has been a meeting which we are given to understand that they are making security plans for both Indian consulate in Melbourne and High Commission in Canberra. So the wheel is churning. However, we haven't heard anything as yet which can say that the crackdown on these Khalistan extremists is happening here in Australia. That is very concerning. If you do not strike on the root cause of what is happening, then probably these are band-aid remedies which Australian authorities are right now trying to take.
So what is the action that you think needs to be taken? Are we talking about a ban? Are we talking about arrests? What needs to be done to ensure that crackdown?
See, of course, everyone follows the law of land. Australia does not allow you to threaten anybody. The people who are responsible for all these posters and attacks on Indian. In January, the Australia Today reported there were a number of attacks on Indian Australians, number of attacks on temples, number of threats given to journalists and diplomats as well. No action as of now, no arrest has been done by Australian police, be it of NSW state or Victoria state or Queensland. When we talk about crackdown, why just recently in Australia, the flag of ISIS was banned. It's a terror organization. Fairly, everyone was very happy and supportive of that decision by government. However, when it comes to the terror of Khalistan goons, Khalistan extremists firebombing, nobody is acting on that. Why can't Australian authorities or US or Canada or UK authorities take these attacks or threats very seriously? People have moved from their homes and living 400, 500 kilometers away just to avoid the wrath of these Khalistan goons. Why is that no action has been taken? In Melbourne itself, one family has fled because they were threatened by these Khalistan extremists of really dire consequences towards their kids, young kids. So what do? They fled from there, and